Hi, this is Dr. Jeff Camarda, and this time I'm talking about how to pick a financial advisor. Here are my guidelines to do the best that you can. Picking a good financial advisor is not as easy as you might think. While many investors think that all advisors have to go through rigorous training and always put clients first when they give advice, sadly, this is not the case. In fact, the license exams to become a FINRA advisor, FINRA stands for Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, are sadly not very hard, and many advisors are able to pass with just a few weeks study. I passed mine back in the 80s with just a week's worth of study. The full service Series 7 stockbroker exam, I studied for a week, and I was a chemist, had no previous financial training. In fact, even those found by FINRA to be cheating on the exams can still get licenses. Amazing. The fact that FINRA is owned by the brokerages instead of the government probably has a lot to do with this. There is a similar situation for annuities advisors and even less regulation in the insurance marketplace. Remember, annuities are insurance products. These are little known facts according to numerous studies, and industry advertising paints a very different picture, creating an illusion of putting you first and high training and competency that rarely exists. This is one of the reasons for the new Department of Labor fiduciary rule intended to curb investor abuse. Sadly, DOL's authority is limited to retirement plans like IRAs and 401ks, so everything else is still fair game for excessive commissions and clients coming last. Investment advice is still very much a buyer beware marketplace, so beware. In our view, there are 8 important points to consider when choosing or replacing an advisor. Number 1, do they put you first or do they put themselves first? Make sure the real deal fiduciaries like Camarda required by law to put you first in all investments, not just IRAs. Number 2, how expert are they? Are they highly trained and educated in wealth planning? Even the CFP designation only requires limited investments training, and most advisors don't even have the CFP. In my PhD dissertation study, I found that only about 10% of advisors had the CFP in Florida, and less than 0.5% had the CFA, which is really the benchmark for investment expertise. For my money, I'd insist on an advisor who's both a fiduciary and has a CFA for Chartered Financial Analyst, as does Camarda, of course, guess, right? Most advisors only have sales licenses, which can be very misleading and very dangerous. Number 3, are they tax savvy to conserve your wealth? Taxes for most are the biggest headwind to really getting rich. Most folks don't do the math, but if they did, they'd realize that legally controlling taxes could supercharge their wealth. Sadly, most advisors and even their CPAs don't study taxes enough to make a difference. If you find that advisors smart about taxes, they could be literally worth more than their weight in gold to some of you. And even a little 175-pound advisor like me weighs about 3.7 million in gold in today's prices. I guess I didn't look that good before, right? Number 4, is compensation clear and fair? In our experience, and as reported by many academic studies, many investors don't have a good grasp of how they pay for investments or what the internal cost structure is on the products that they own. When we smoke these out with our portfolio stress tests, they're often amazed and angry at how high and how hard to find some of these expenses are. Often such high costs are a direct result of the murky compensation that such advisors receive. Make sure you know what the total costs are and what you get for it. For instance, Camarda's investment advisory fees are clearly disclosed at the beginning of every relationship and clearly calculated on every quarterly portfolio statement that Camarda prepares and sends to clients. Number 5, are you getting advice and planning or just product pitches with the illusion of advice? This is another often misunderstood area. Many investors are allowed to believe they're getting ongoing advice, but in reality, they receive a sales pitch to buy a product. If things don't work out and the investor complains, they're often surprised to learn that the advisor had no duty to actually provide advice and that the investor is actually responsible to analyze whether the investment is in their best interest and actually responsible to continue to review it to make sure this remains so. If they don't, often no one does. Make sure you know what you're paying for and know how you pay for it. Number 6, how severe and obvious are conflicts of interest? These can be numerous, but most conflicts of interest spring from the fact that the advisor is paid a commission to sell a product, and the more the advisor makes, the more the investor pays. The more the investor pays, the lower the return, and the worse the investor does. This is a pretty severe conflict, made much worse by the illusion that the advisor is actually working in the investor's best interest, when this is not true. In fact, most commission advisors don't even have a strong duty to even disclose conflicts, so investors must be careful to find out and get it in writing so they have some ammunition in case they need to go after the advisor. Registered investment advisors like Camarda do have a duty to disclose such conflicts and also to act in the client's best interest on all investment advice. Number 7 is a regulatory disciplinary history. This is really important to check. During my PhD dissertation research, I came across an advisor in Florida who's been in business since 1982 and has a habitual malpractice history stretching back to 1988, with the most recent just last year in 2016. He's been fined and suspended repeatedly, convicted of perjury, barred from the investment industry for life in one state, found by a regulator to have made a false and misleading statement, and to have committed dishonest and unethical practices, and so on. Despite all this, he's still licensed and promoting himself to the public as one of this country's top financial planners. You need to be careful, and you need to be sure. If you don't know how to run this sort of background check, call Camarda at 888-CAMARDA, and we'll show you how. And number 8, is there any third-party recognition of excellence? What advisors say about themselves is sometimes suspect, but what others say may carry more weight with you. Look for evidence that an advisor has received credible national recognition by the financial press and other respectable bodies. To use Camarda as an example, Barron's has repeatedly named me, that's Dr. Camarda, as one of the best financial advisors in America, one of the best people in the business, a truly great financial advisor in the top 1% who sets the higher standards of the profession. I'm not the only one, of course, but we're certainly relatively rare. Worth Magazine has also named me one of the top 250 advisors in the country way back in 2008. The Wall Street Journal has repeatedly run features on my advice, and I have earned many other professional and academic national honors and recognition over many years. And again, I'm not unique. There are other advisors out there, with that kind of recognition. Not too many with my credentials, I don't think. But it's important to seek out the best in an area as complicated as medicine or law. Most people really are surprised financial advisors can be licensed to practice with no required experience or training and no education beyond a few weeks' study to pass a basic sales license exam. Surprisingly, many, if not most, advisors are not even required to put their interests of their clients first and even push high commission products under the guise of objective advice. Others pledge to put clients first and pursue highly advanced education, even doctorates like me, to provide true wealth leadership. It can be very hard to tell a difference, even for sophisticated investors. To help find out which kind you have and make sure it's the kind you want, feel free to click on the link somewhere in the video and get our 8 big mistakes to avoid in using a financial advisor. This report is very informative, it's free, and it could make all the difference in yours or your family situation. Please click to get your free copy now. Thanks so much for listening. This is Dr. Jeff Camarda. Until next time, go forth and profit.